Hello, my name is Alden Chodash. I'm starting up my boxing show again from a few years back. Still an avid fan of the sport. Haven't really lost touch with it, but just haven't found the time to broadcast myself as often as I used to. But what better way to start than after a big weekend of fights? So I have a little list here of things I want to discuss, upcoming events, and most importantly, what happened this weekend, and just some analyses on certain fights I'd like to see made. Well, we'll start with the lesser of the two fights, Alvarez versus Lopez. Um, what I expected, basically. I am a big fan of Saul Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez. I love his form. I love his composure in the ring. He's a young kid, early 20s. One of the things that's surprising is that he has 41 fights already, and another thing that's surprising is that he fights like he has 41 fights. You see a guy like Chavez Jr. who has 47 fights, 48 fights now. He's pretty young also. He's almost as young as Canelo Alvarez, but he doesn't look as mature. He doesn't have that ring generalship in the ring. So Alvarez is a bit of a diamond in the rough still. His competition hasn't been up to par yet. Jose Lopez, he is very blown up junior welterweight. Earlier this year he was 140 pounds. We thought he was a risk moving up to 147 to face Victor Ortiz. Now here he is at 154. To be honest, I don't think he looked like he was meant to be in that weight division. He looked a little flabby, and he had some heart, but really what happened was what a lot of people expected to happen, including me. It was more of a showcase for Canelo Alvarez, and I think he lived up to what it was supposed to. So it really doesn't hurt his marketability. Hopefully for him, he gets that $100,000 for the KO tonight, even though it was a technical knockout. Um, but yeah, Alvarez in the future, I definitely for a while I've wanted to see him versus Miguel Cotto. Of course, Cotto has to fight Austin Trout in December. Decent matchup. I think Cotto will get by it. I hope he looks good enough to make the Alvarez fight marketable. That the promoters will get together and make that fight happen. Well, that to me, marketable or not, is the best matchup to be made at 154. Cotto and Mayweather too. Exciting fight like the first fight was, but we know who's going to win the fight. Mayweather clearly demonstrated he's the better fighter. Clearly demonstrated that he's probably the best fighter out there right now. I think he's the best pound for pound fighter in the sport, and I think Canelo Alvarez would be unprepared for him, and it would hurt him as a fighter and hurt his prospects to get possibly humiliated by Floyd Mayweather when he's too young to take that step. He has over 40 fights, but 40 fights against Lovemore and Jose Lopez, aging Kermit Cintrone doesn't compare to the 40-something fights that Floyd Mayweather has against the best in the world in all the five weight divisions that he's won titles in. Okay, so the biggest fight of this weekend obviously was Martinez versus Chavez Jr. The fight really reminded me of two of my favorite fights, two of the greatest fights in history, two legendary nights on the HBO documentary that they had about 9 or 8 years ago. In the beginning, it looked like Cooney Holmes. It looked like Chavez was built up. He was just an image, and he wasn't living up to what people built him up to be. Just this body punching destroyer was going to kind of go through the unpopular champion like Sergio Martinez, somewhat unpopular, maybe not as unpopular as Larry Holmes, and it was going to be a victory for an ethnicity, in this case Mexican, not the great white hope like Jerry Cooney was. But and the fight looked like it. It looked like the more professional, maybe less popular fighter Sergio Martinez was showing his professionalism against an incomplete pro like Chavez Jr. And that was the case, some would say, for 11 rounds. There was a couple moments where Chavez landed a couple good body shots. But for the most part, I gave Chavez none of the first 11 rounds, and Harold Letterman didn't give many of the first 11 rounds. Two of the three judges didn't give many of the first 11 rounds. The other judge only gave him one, and that's questionable. So Chavez was a big disappointment. I I was uh, I was very upset at what I was seeing from him. From a guy that's supposed to be 180 pounds the day of the fight, it's supposed to be his routine. He wasn't fighting like a cruiserweight against a middleweight, and that's one of the things I'm going to talk about later. Is how I have a problem with Chavez's ways of getting around the weigh-in policy and completely overpowering and outsizing his true middleweight opponents. But okay, the 12th round, of course, it looks like Chavez Sr. versus Meldrick Taylor. Commentators were screaming that out. Everyone knew. Everyone was thinking before the 12th round that this could be his only chance. We had no idea it could be a reality until about a minute in. Landed a big right hand, followed up, put him down, almost knocked him out. I give a lot of credit to Sergio Martinez for getting out of that round. I did not think he was going to get out of the round. At 10 seconds left in the round, I was questioning whether he was going to get out of the round. But he got out of the round, and he won the decision, and it was... some would think it could diminish his victory. I think it showed his heart. I don't think it made his victory greater by no means, but it also paved the way for a potential rematch. Okay, well, one of the reasons, in my opinion, I mean, other people might disagree, that I have a problem with Chavez and him getting huge fights is that he's not a middleweight. He's clearly not a middleweight. He weighed in at 158. Of course, Bob Arum was ecstatic about that. I looked at him. He looked. If you look at the contrast between what he was at 158 the day before the fight and the day of the fight, when he was, they wouldn't weigh in the day of the fight, but I think he was 180 something pounds. It's a sick looking middleweight versus a healthy cruiserweight or a light heavyweight, and day of the fight, the day before the fight when the weigh-in is conducted is not the day of the fight. As Chavez proved, there's two different fighters in there. Arturo Gatti did it at 140 pounds against Joey Dimash. Reyes Munoz ended both of their careers. This is dangerous stuff. Guys that aren't middleweight shouldn't be fighting at middleweight. Sergio Martinez could have gotten hurt. Fortunately for him, he's, I think, the third best fighter in the world right now. So he was able to elude most of Chavez's punches, keep him off the offensive and defend himself properly, and dominate the fight for the most part. But there are many middleweights out there, some of the best, that can get hurt by Chavez, who's not a middleweight. And I think the fact that Chavez is continually getting fights at the biggest fights at middleweight and taking away from true middleweight's potential earnings by taking those big fights, I think it's not good for the sport. I really don't think it's good for the division also. And when someone gets hurt, I mean, people are going to open their eyes and say it's really not good for the fighter that gets hurt. It's not good for their safety. It's not a good mark for the sport. But, I mean, in all realism, Chavez is going to get a rematch at the best middleweight in the world. And he's going to get a huge payday for being a light heavyweight / cruiserweight, beating up on middleweights. And I really don't like his persona, saying he's got one of the best chins in the world. Of course, you have a great chin if you're fighting someone that's that much lighter than you. You're going to be able to take the punch much better than someone of the same size. But that's just my opinion on the Chavez-Martinez fight. Real quick, we're going to discuss some upcoming fights, some of the big ones, some of the ones I'm most interested in. We got Boxing After Dark, a doubleheader, two of the most exciting fighters in the sport, Nonito Donaire and Brandon Rios. Rios up against Mike Alvarado, Donaire up against Nishioka. I'm going to be honest, I really don't know his first name off the top of my head. It starts with a T. But the thing is, Nishioka, he's ranked as one of the best in the world. No one really knows much about him, though, because he's fought the majority of his career overseas in Japan. And we'll see what he's made out of. But really what this fight is, on paper, it's the best fight to be made in the division because it's probably the two best fighters at 122 pounds. Both fighters in the main event, or maybe the co-feature, I'm not sure which is which, Brandon Rios and Mike Alvarado, are pretty good names. Rios obviously is more of a name than Mike Alvarado, but Mike Alvarado really looked good against Breidis Prescott. He knocked him out late. He was behind him in the scorecards. Almost a star-making performance, kind of a mini-star, but I mean, he's working his way up there. He's definitely marketable against a guy like Brandon Rios. It's going to be a really exciting fight. It's going to be a really good fight. We're going to see what Brandon Rios is made out of when he moves up in weight, presumably at a division where he doesn't have to kill himself like Chavez is doing now to get down to 140. And he gets a chance to rebound from a very controversial win over Richard Abril in April. And one more fight I'd like to remark on that's not official but might be in the makings. Best fight to make it lightweight. Antonio DeMarco and Adrian Broner. Great fight. Two explosive fighters. Broner a little more flashy. DeMarco persistent. Both good punchers. Broner moving up in weight. Best fight to be made at lightweight. and I guess that's my timer. Okay, well, thanks for being with me, and I'll see you in a week.